Here we are. Lectures from the desk, and we're talking today about the rules mask. Now, if you don't know what the 8 masks are, you can go to jamestippins.com, autonomycommission.com. You can look more there, or here in my YouTube channel, which this may be going out on other places. But there's a version of a person who appears on the surface to be put together. I mean, sometimes the most put together in any room they enter. You know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, their house is ordered, their schedule is precise, they communicate very clearly, their commitments are kept with such a consistency that it almost produces like an admiration. They think very carefully before they speak. They are, more reliable than almost anybody else you know. They don't make impulsive decisions. They have systems, really. They have systems in place for things that other people leave to chance or wouldn't even think about. And they are underneath all of that extraordinary discipline, though, one of the most anxious people alive. The rules mask is the identity that learned. If I can manage the variables, I won't be caught off guard. I won't be destroyed, If I can establish the right systems, the right boundaries, the right standards, frameworks, whatever, the uncertainty that once produced real suffering won't be able to reach me. Control is not a preference for this person. It is a survival strategy. And it was built in response to real conditions that genuinely required it. Okay, where does this mask come from? Some of you are thinking, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. You'll figure it out. The origin of the rules mask is almost always an environment characterized by chaos or unpredictability. But it's not necessarily chaos or chaotic in the obvious way. Sometimes it's in a household where the parent's mood was the primary variable that determined what the day was going to be like, the quality of life. Sometimes it's in a community of people where the standards of belonging were never really made clear. They weren't fully explicit, and they could shift without warning. Sometimes it's in a family system where illness or financial issues or instability there or relational volatility created the environment where no single day could you get up in the morning could ever be really anticipated. How's this day going to go? You wouldn't know. In each case, the child did what intelligent children do in unpredictable environments. They developed a relationship with control as the primary tool for managing their experience of the world. So, if I can be good enough, if I can be good enough, then the mood won't change. Mom's mood won't get bad, or dad's mood won't change. If I can follow the rules, if I follow these rules precisely, I'll belong. If I can manage my own behavior carefully, I won't be caught by something that I didn't see coming. I'll always be prepared. And the control in this way as a child, it worked. It wasn't perfectly operating, but it worked. It was enough, right? Enough that the relationship between order and safety became structural. And the child in this who found safety and control became the adult who finds safety in systems. Raise your hand if that sounds like you. Here I am. I want to be precise about what I mean by the rules mask, because there is a healthy form of orderliness, that's a hard word to say on a Tuesday, and a healthy form of what we would call discipline that is not a mask at all. A person who values structure and operates in that structure as a genuine expression of how they move through the world, without the structure then becoming the condition for their okayness, is not wearing this mask. The rules mask is specifically the version where the structure is not an expression of freedom, but rather a defense against the threat of chaos, where the rules are not really chosen because they reflect values in a genuine way, but they're maintained because, honestly, and I love to use this word because it fits, The absence of these rules produce absolute terror. And some people who wear this mask go, well, why is it really a big deal? I mean, it works for me. Yeah, you think it works for you, and it does work for you in the outcomes, but the inner space, who you are, is paying. There's a cost. And that cost for the mask wearing, for the rules mask wearer, is almost never invisible to the people who are, it's always invisible to the people who are around them. People say, oh man, this guy's got it together. This woman is just like in charge. They never see what it's really costing, because everything they present to the world is evidence of function. The output is very, very clean. The commitments are honored, the systems work, and there is no obvious sign of the amount of energy required to maintain the whole architecture. The first cost is relational. People who are in close relationship with a strong rules mask person often will report a particular experience, and they'll say something like this: well, this relationship is very warm. There's some genuine care. This person cares for me. They invest in me. But there's also a quality of being managed. You feel like, but it's sort of like they're controlling me, of being held to a standard that was not established through negotiation. They're not saying anything, but the way they live, it's almost like I'm always indicted as not good enough. A feeling at times like a variable in someone else's system rather than a full and distinct person in a relationship. See, the rules mask person does not mean to produce this experience. They're not even thinking about this mask. They're not deliberately controlling, but the same hypervigilance about unpredictability that makes them extraordinary at managing life and systems extends inevitably into every relationship, because relationships are the most, listen to what I'm about to say, the most unpredictable variable in any life. And the rules mask is not able to suspend its operation just because the variable in front of them is a person that they care deeply about or love. The result then is that people close to the rules mask person, they feel beneath the genuine warmth of the relationship this low-grade pressure to be predictable. I got to get my stuff together. I have to not bring the messy parts, to manage their own emotionality in ways that don't disturb the system. They develop over time a sense of which version of themselves is welcome in the relationship and which is not. And the relationship, though real and often genuinely loving, develops a ceiling below which presence is not available, because full presence in a relationship requires the freedom to be unpredictable, to be human. And unpredictability is the thing that the rules mask is built to prevent. The second cost, so the first cost is relationships. The second cost of the mask of rules to the person who wears it is the exhaustion of maintaining such a mask. I mean, a person whose sense of okayness depends on the maintenance of the systems that they've created and the standards, they're doing two jobs simultaneously every single time. The first job is living life. They're living their life, okay? The second job is monitoring the systems that make life feel safe. And the problem is that the monitoring never stops, because the threat that the monitoring was designed to address is not specific. It's not a bounded threat. It's the general threat of an unpredictable world. And an unpredictable world does not ever become fully predictable, regardless of how refined the systems become. So this monitoring is indefinite. And the cost is not always visible, but that it accumulates over years and years and years into a baseline exhaustion that the person cannot account for. I wrote about this in my book that I just finished, that hopefully will be published in the fall, an entire chapter on the exhaustion of this. So relationships is a cost. The exhaustion of maintenance is a cost. The third cost is the experience of failure. For the rules mask person, a failure of the systems is not experienced as a setback. I want you to hear this very clearly. It's not a setback for this person. It's a collapse of the architecture of their personal safety, emotionally and physically. When something goes wrong that the systems were supposed to keep right, the response is not proportional to the significance of the thing that went wrong. It's proportional to what the failure represents unconsciously, and what it represents at the structural level of the identity is the return of the unpredictability that the whole apparatus was built to prevent. And so the thing that was supposed to not be able to reach them has touched them. And the response is the full weight of the original fear. And it arrives without warning, and it's very deep. So this disproportionate response is often the thing that confuses most people around the rules mask person. From the outside, the thing that went wrong was like, it's not a big deal. Why are you worried about what they said? Why are you worried about this? Why are you worried? But from the inside, the inner space of the person wearing the mask, that's not minor. It was evidence that the control was not enough. And if the control is not enough, nothing is safe, right? The fourth cost is the foreclosure of surprise. That's sort of what I call it. So a life organized primarily around the management of uncertainty is a life from which a significant portion of genuine aliveness has been removed, because to be genuinely alive requires a degree of openness to what has not yet been determined. The unexpected conversation that really changes everything. The direction that was not in the plan and turned out to be the thing, right? The person who arrived in an unscripted moment and became like a key player, an essential friend. These things require a person who is available to them, and a person whose primary energy is going to, focus on the management and really be invested in the management of the unexpected is not available at all to be surprised by their own life. They're managing too carefully to be caught by the good version of the thing they're protecting against. Underneath the rules mask, all the systems and the standards and the careful management of variables, there is a specific fear. And here's how I'll close this out today. And naming the fear, and precisely, I think, is probably one of the most important things that the rules mask person can do. Because the rules themselves aren't the problem. The rules are the solution to the fear, and you cannot address a solution until you have addressed the thing it was solving. The fear in almost every rules mask person that I have worked with is a version of this, a variation of this. If I'm not vigilant, something's going to happen that I won't recover from. If I don't stay on top of everything, there's going to be an incident that is going to ruin everything. The specific shape of something varies. For some people, it's relationship loss or stress. For others, it's being seen as a failure by others or public humiliation. For others, it's the return of a specific quality of chaos that was present in childhood that the person has been working against, consciously or not, ever since it started. They might have been 5, 6, 7, 8. But the structure is consistent. The unpredictable event is experienced, honestly, as potentially fatal. Not necessarily literally fatal, but fatal in the sense of producing an outcome from which the sense of self cannot recover, cannot be rebuilt. And so what the rules mask does not know, because it's never been able to test it, is whether the fear is true or accurate. The mask has been so successful at preventing the test from happening that the question of whether the person could recover from a genuine loss of control has never been genuinely answered. And so the fear retains its full power. Unexamined fears are always at full strength. It's only when they're actually encountered, lived through, survived, experienced, that their actual size can be assessed after the fact. So the movement toward freedom for the rules mask is not the abandonment of structure. Oh, just carpe diem, que sera, sera. No. It's the loosening of the structural dependency just enough that genuine encounter with the unpredictable becomes possible. So what does that look like? Is small experiences, tiny little moments of choosing not to manage with intention, allowing a conversation to go somewhere unplanned, and just staying present, listening, staying with it, instead of trying to redirect it or get it back on path. Letting a day be less ordered than every other day, and noticing what actually happens rather than what you feared would happen. These experiments, when they're done with awareness and reflection, begin to build what the rules mask has never been able to accumulate. What is that? Evidence and truth that unpredictability does not produce catastrophe. That the person underneath the systems is more resilient than the systems require them to be. The person underneath this mask is not someone who needs to become chaotic or disorganized or impulsive so that they can be free. That would be exchanging one overcorrection for another. That'd be literally, I could add a ninth mask, I guess, the mask of ridiculousness or reaction. The underneath, the person that's underneath this mask is someone who has real gifts. And those gifts are strong in the domain of order and consistency, thoughtful construction. These gifts are genuine and true, and they belong to the person, not the mask, okay? So what changes when the mask is addressed is not the gifts. What changes is the relationship to the disorder that is inevitably part of any full life. The rules mask person, when they have done the work that I do with them, can encounter the unexpected without the encounter. They can encounter the unexpected without that encounter being experienced as an attack on their architecture. They can be in a relationship where the other person is fully present. They can be in a relationship with someone where that relationship is fully unpredictable, but be fully themselves without the unpredictability needing to be managed. They can have a plan and hold it loosely enough that when life deviates from the plan, the deviation is workable instead of catastrophic. So picture a version of your life where the structure you've built is genuinely yours. And it's chosen because it expresses something real about how you move through the world rather than maintained because the absence of it produces terror. Where a disrupted plan is an inconvenience or irritation rather than an emergency. I was triggered earlier today, felt the trigger. Why? Because it was ultimately irritation about a conversation that I just didn't feel like was being resolved. And we resolved it just that quickly. Think about a life where the people closest to you can fully be themselves in your presence without feeling the low-grade pressure to always be predictable. Where a day that doesn't go as you intended is still the best day of your life and you can be present in it. Picture that specific relief of not having to manage everything, to oversee everything, to control everything, of being in a room with genuine uncertainty and finding, honestly, for the first time that the uncertainty does not require your intervention, that the world can be imperfect and you can be present in it rather than working against it, that your being okay does not require the outcome to be controlled or even perceived or understood because your okayness is coming from somewhere that the outcome cannot reach. See, the rules mask says that you're safe when the variables are managed. Your true identity says you're safe regardless of these things because the ground you're standing on is not made of the systems. It's made of the self that was there before there was ever a system, before anything was built, before anything was ever constructed, and that self will be there when the systems are no longer needed at the cost they've been requiring. The rules where your protection, where you wanted to keep yourself safe, they did their job. You did not need to carry them as an identity anymore. I'm going to be doing these and many more like them. So subscribe to wherever you are. You can see me on YouTube. Find me, James Tippins. That's me. And this is Unbound